Hello, I'm Julie Swenson, Managing Director of Forward Theater Company in Madison, Wisconsin.
And I'm Mike Fisher, Milwaukee-based theater writer and dramaturg.
I'm Jen Uphoff Gray, founder and artistic director of Forward Theater Company. And this is Theater Forward, a twice-monthly conversation about theater from a local, regional, and national perspective. From Madison to Manhattan, we're excited to share insight into our own company while exploring issues surrounding theater in the Midwest and around the country. Welcome to episode 92 of Theater Forward.
Great to be here.
For this episode, we are going to talk about World Premiere Wisconsin, a homegrown project over 4 years in the making, which kicks off on March 1st, 2023, which as we record this is less than a week away. And all of you on this screen have been involved in this journey. But now that this festival is finally officially beginning, we thought we would talk a little bit about where it came from and what the process has been like of building this first of its kind celebration of new work here in the state of Wisconsin. So I'm going to kick us off because quite bluntly, it started in my wild little brain in October of 2018. So way back in the ages prior to COVID and all kinds of other things we've been through. Julie, you and I went to Milwaukee to attend the Statera conference, which is a conference for women in theater. And it was hosted in Milwaukee that year by our friends at Renaissance Theater Works. And we're like, this is great, a theater conference, and we don't have to travel far. Let's go. And we spent a couple of days going to panel discussions and networking and chatting with our friends and making new friends. And it was great. So one of the sessions that you and I went to together, because we were sitting together, was led by Nan Barnett, who is the head of the National New Play Network. And Nan was talking about her experience working as the producer of the DC Women's Voices Theater Festival, which was held in 2015 in Washington, DC, and then repeated again in 2018. And it was an event that brought together, a couple of dozen theater companies the first time in the DC area who all committed to producing works by women playwrights. And Nan was kind of talking about her experience putting all of that together. I still remember one of my favorite things she said was talking about conversations when all the artistic directors would be in a meeting together. And she says, this wasn't herding cats, this was herding crickets. And that, believe me, is an image that has stayed with me these 4.5 years since. But some of the context of while I was listening to this is that, at that point, Forward was in its 10th season. We'd been really working hard to try to get our colleagues at different companies around the state to collaborate. There had been an organization called Theater Wisconsin that had kind of gone dormant, that had at one time had, annual meetings to bring folks together. But was feeling like people were fairly siloed off for reasons that were understandable. Everyone had big jobs and busy lives. And we had also not long before that here at Overture Center in Madison, a few years before that, we had collaborated on a 10th anniversary celebration for the building in which all of the resident companies came together to develop a production in celebration with some opera and some symphony music and some ballet and some theater. So these were all examples of trying to get folks working together on a bigger than our own organization's project. And I was listening to Nan talk about the DC Festival and thinking about how much I wished we could do something here in Wisconsin that would have similar benefits. And it really was, it felt like I had two different brains working at the same time, because I really was listening to Nan and taking, copious notes. And at the same time, my brain was kind of cooking. And at the end of that session, I remember, Julie, I turned to you and I said, don't be mad, or something to that effect. But what do you think of World Premiere Wisconsin? And we kind of hit the ground running. And right out of the gate, I know that there were sort of three goals that I had in mind in thinking up this idea. One was, as I already alluded to, just bringing the people working on theater together to build more community, to build networks. It can be very lonely working for a nonprofit arts organization, because especially if you have a small staff, you got like your one marketing person, your one development person, maybe your one education person, your artistic director. And sometimes it's so helpful to talk to other people who have your same job. And it can be hard to build those relationships. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if we had a marketing team of all the marketing directors and a development team of all the development directors? And then even when the festival's over, we can reach out to each other for help or a shoulder to cry on or a cheerleading when something goes well. So that was a big goal. A second big goal that had been building was out of this sense of frustration. And Julie, I know you and I share this because we both spent many years working professionally in New York City. And there can be such blinders in this field to the work that happens outside of New York, or sometimes we could say New York and Chicago, or maybe if we're generous, New York, Chicago, and LA. The artists that work here, the new work that is generated here, it is on a par with anything happening anywhere, including Broadway and off Broadway. And nobody knows it. Nobody pays attention to it, gives it credit. And I thought a statewide festival like this might help just kind of shine a light under our bushel, right, of what we do here. And then honestly, the third sort of goal that I had in mind was to celebrate new work and maybe make it a little bit easier and or less risky for companies who maybe don't do new work all the time to try it or to do it again, because it does take more resources. It can be more risky from a marketing standpoint. And I remember the first time Forward ever commissioned a play, I was like, I have no idea what a commissioning contract looks like. And so I called our colleague Jeff Frank at First Stage, because I know they commission plays all the time. And I was like, can you help me show me what one of these should look like, right? And so I thought, if there's this network of folks working together, some of whom do new works all the time, then that would make it easier for other folks to get on board. So those were the three goals. And pretty much immediately thereafter, I started having meetings with other theater leaders. I don't want to talk nonstop too much longer, but just real quickly, the first step was kind of getting a lead team together. And I knew we would want Milwaukee Rep, the flagship theater in our state, on board. I met with first Brent Hazelton, who was then on their staff. He's since moved to Milwaukee Chamber Theater. But I talked to Brent. He put me in contact with Maya Dralis and Dini Vallone from their staff. So Dini and May worked with us, Julie, you and I. And then we thought, let's get a Door County representative, because there's a lot of great professional theater happening up in Door County. Molly Rohde from Northern Sky came on, and lo and behold, we had a leadership team. That team has evolved over these 4 years. May left for New York to run the Lark. She's now working freelance. Laura Braza has come on board from Milwaukee Rep. We've had significant support from Marcy Kearns while she was Associate Artistic Director at Chamber, helping support the leadership team. She's now on staff with Forward. So it's ebbed and flowed a little bit, but we got that leadership team together, and we then went and reached out to all of the professional theaters in the state to invite them to be a part of what we were doing. Pretty much everybody said, yeah, this sounds great. And we started having regular meetings. We had a big kickoff meeting at 10 Chimneys Foundation in the fall of 2019, where everyone got together to sort of hammer out some more details of how this would work. 10 Chimneys has been an incredible partner throughout this. They're in fact our presenting sponsor for this festival. And then, as we all know, in the spring of 2020, things really changed dramatically. And I will just say that I have never been more glad for having started something in my life than I was that World Premiere Wisconsin had started, because we were already all talking to each other. And therefore, it didn't take us months. It was a matter of days into the shutdown before we said, you know what, let's get a Zoom call together with all the leadership of the professional theaters in the state to start talking about what's going on and what we can do and how we can support each other. And those meetings have continued every month since then.
That was an invaluable time. That we already had those relationships together, talking about World Premiere Wisconsin. For a little while, they morphed into COVID testing and conversations about our union, Actors Equity Association.
Yep.
And it was invaluable. I don't know what we would have done without each other's support and guidance. And oh my God, what are you doing? That kind of thing. And so there was this added benefit of having all these people together for World Premiere Wisconsin that we could have never anticipated. And
Right. So when I think about the goals of the festival, that one of bringing people together, it's already like, I mean, we checked that box years before the festival even started. But
right.
So to compress the timeline, that got us early 2020. But by summer of 2020, we sort of polled everyone and said, hey, are we still good to continue to plan to have this for the spring of 2023? Every single group pretty much said, yeah, full speed ahead. In a way that added a fourth goal for this festival of kind of doing this positive event and this sort of exciting story to shine a light on our companies as we are all doing a lot of rebuilding as we move through this COVID time. But we, in the very beginning of 2022, we reached out to every other theater maker in the state that we could get a contact email for, academic theaters, children's theaters, community theaters, semi-professional companies, presenters, playwrights, really invited everybody to come in and participate in the festival. That communication went out at the beginning of 2022. We publicly announced the festival at the end of January of 2022. We hired a part-time line producer for the festival, the incredible Michael Cody, in the summer of 2022. And now here we are. The festival begins in a few days. Some of the festival productions have already opened. We have an extraordinary website. There's a cool passport. We can talk about things like that later, but there are nearly 50 new works happening in either full productions or staged readings in over 20 communities across the state. And I kind of can't believe it.
I can't believe that it's that it's happening right now. I mean, talking to somebody, because I'm going to be writing about the festival a lot on behalf of the festival, and so I've already started interviewing various creatives, playwrights, and others who have been involved in making this work happen. And you talk to somebody like Erica Berman, the awesome education director at Children's Theater of Madison, whose play Finder in the North Star is playing as we speak. And is an entry in World Premiere Wisconsin. And she said to her, her play is about being brave. And she said for this festival to be brave in this particular moment, when theaters have been decimated, theaters are closing, attendance is way off, and to say, you know what, we're going ahead. We're going ahead, and we're not just going ahead, we're investing in the work that is the hardest to get an audience to come see. I mean, way before the pandemic, you have study after study from the Theater Communications Group and others talking about how difficult it is for theater companies who are trying to be fiscally responsible to go ahead and program new work, knowing in doing so that it's going to be tougher to get an audience, and yet also recognizing that new work is the lifeblood of theater. And theaters like Forward have done so anyway for a long time, as has Milwaukee Rep, as has Northern Sky, the three lead producers of this festival, among many others. But to do it now, to say we're going to do this right now because we believe so much in what we are all about and what theater is all about, and that is, talk about shining a light in a dark moment. I mean, this is really it. And I don't like the fact that the timing worked out the way it did in terms of coming out of a pandemic. I mean, it was fortuitous in the worst way, but it's also fortuitous in the best way in terms of celebrating what we're all about.
It's one of the things that I'm most excited about. Speaking to your point, Mike, about the challenges in doing new work and the importance of doing new work, early on after cooking up this festival, kind of as soon as I knew that there was at least enough interest from a few other companies that we wanted to try to move ahead, I reached out to Nan Barnett and said, hey, could we have a call? I'd love to pick your brain. I'd love to just, let you know what we're doing and that you inspired it in many ways. We had a great conversation, and she was kind of immediately all in from National New Play Network to say, how can we be supportive of this? Because this hopefully could be an easily replicable model for other cities, regions, states around the country to try themselves. And so, and NPN has been a lovely partner throughout this. We've done some, Ask Me Anything Zoom sessions that they've participated in. Also, when Michael Cody joined us as producer, he brought along some contacts that he'd been working with at the Dramatists Guild. And so the Dramatists Guild similarly has become a great supporter of the festival. They're working with us. They're sponsoring a Wisconsin Playwrights Symposium at 10 Chimneys later this spring, which was always one of the goals that we had, to provide an opportunity for Wisconsin-based playwrights to come together and support each other and get some external support as well. I should be clear, it's not a criteria of World Premiere Wisconsin that every premiere be written by a Wisconsin playwright. They're all produced here, created here by artists. Many of the festival pieces are written by Wisconsin playwrights, but some of them are not. And knowing that that would be the case, we also knew we wanted to have programming to specifically support the playwrights here. So having the Dramatists Guild come on, and for similar reasons to NNPN, in that they see this as a model that with any luck could be used elsewhere to help encourage more new works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this idea, and this is a Michael Cody idea, is this passport we've got now that you can download, and then it's so interactive that you can look at, I want to see things in Madison, and it will show everything that's showing, and a little bit about the play, or you can go to the link of each of the companies. That is replicable, and
Yeah.
there are things that we can hand to the next state who is interested in this. And here's what we've learned. And so far, I am. You had mentioned, Jen, about we made people aware of this. I'm so happily shocked that how many companies said, yeah, we'll do something immediately. There wasn't, we didn't go out and meet personally and beg people to do it. We just had companies that said, yeah, I'll do a reading, or I'll do a full play, or you know what, I've got something that I'd like to bring. And that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and in terms of, go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say, Julie, I'm so glad you mentioned that passport, and you can get to it through the World Premiere Wisconsin website, but it's a digital thing. It's like an app. You can have it right on your phone, and you can check in at every World Premiere Wisconsin event you go to, and you earn points. Points get you cool swag. We have an awesome logo. It's really beautiful. You can get it all over things by seeing it. It encourages you to attend multiple things, and especially to try visiting companies that maybe you're not a regular visitor to. So it's really awesome. And it's something that had been developed for like food tours, or like restaurant tours, or bar hopping events by various business districts around the country. But we think this is the first time it's been used for like live arts. So yeah, it's a very, very cool feature. Mike, you were going to say.
No, I mean, you're reminding me. They did it for Chicago Book Week or Book Day one day, and so I spent a day like traveling all over Chicago trying to accumulate points so I could get swag, and it was just so fun. And it connected you to different bookstores in different communities. And what I love most about this passport and about this festival is it's going to expand people's understanding and definition of the way in which we're all part of this one ecosystem. I mean, I think we're used to maybe thinking of it in one city. I mean, I had a recent awesome Saturday where I started by seeing the first stage production in Milwaukee of The Hobbit, then went to see what to me is a sort of groundbreaking moment in Milwaukee theater, Renaissance Theater Works production of Cost of Living, the regional premiere of this production, which requires two actors living with disabilities and is very challenging to produce, but also won the Pulitzer 5 years ago. And then went on to see Evita, starring, advisory company forward member Raina Roman, who was killing it as Evita. Those are three completely different shows that no one of those could really have been done well by any one of the other two companies, but they synergistically gave you a full day of theater within one city. And to start thinking about that between cities. So for example, I was talking to a theater creative recently who saw The Heart Sellers in Milwaukee. Loved that play. It's a fantastic play. It's the first entry in our festival. It's not a play because of casting challenges and the money that goes with that and the housing that goes with that could be done in lots of other parts of Wisconsin. But why not think of that as something wherever you live in Wisconsin is part of what you can be fed by Wisconsin theater, and to travel and to go see it. which then opens up the possibility. You start thinking as a theater goer and as theaters, wow, we could also do some collaborations here. Maybe there are things we can't do individually, but gosh darn it, maybe we could do an Angels in America with the two parts of it, with two companies cooperating. Maybe Coast of Utopia, which I've mentioned before by Tom Stoppard, is something that I would love to see in Wisconsin. Maybe if 3 or 4 or 6 companies already cooperating in the sort of in a way that they're cooperating to make this festival happen, work together to make that happen. And people's minds will be blown and expanded geographically as well as thematically by the possibilities. And the passport sort of both, it's not just cool, it's sort of a metaphor for this ability to enter into new doors and enter into new territories that you haven't been to before. It's just genius.
It's so fun, Mike. And I will co-sign how amazingly wonderful the Heart Sellers was. I got over to Milwaukee last weekend to see that. I went to see Children's Theater of Madison's premiere, Finder of the North Star by Erica Berman, who you were mentioning earlier, Mike. I saw that last weekend. It was so fabulous. Seeing Cap City Theater's new musical this weekend. I mean, it's such a banquet of exciting new work. And I know how excited the Wisconsin theater organizations and theater artists are about this festival. What I'm really excited about over these coming months is to see the audience response to the opportunity to see all of this new work close to home, done by theaters of all different shapes and sizes, all different kinds of new work, and to know that the audience members themselves are playing a part in the development of these stories that are going to go on to be told all over the place. And there's something really special about being a part of that first audience for a piece. And I'm really hoping that we hear from the theater lovers around here enthusiasm for this opportunity to have that experience over and over, so close to home.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to also see the Capital City production this week, and I mean, shame on me. I was the critic who wrote most about theater in this state until I moved on in 2018 and joined this awesome, amazing theater company that I'm now associated with, and I've never been. I mean, they've been around since 2015. I've never been to a Capital City production. I mean, it's sort of embarrassing, but it's also really exciting. And to think that I'm going to be going there this weekend and seeing a play, and it's World Premiere Wisconsin. By putting all these things together on this fabulous website and through this passport and through this festival, you just start thinking about things in a different way. And that's a perfect example of how it's done so for me.
Yeah. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say how excited I am personally about the opportunity or the excuse that this festival provided us with here at Forward to commission our beloved Lauren Gunderson to write a new piece for us. I think I reached out to Lauren. I was looking back in my email history and my journals, and I reached out to her in December of 2018. I mean, this was really still pretty much a glint in my eye and not much more than that at that point. But I had already reached out to her to say, hey, I'm working on this thing. Think I could commission you to write something? And, there was a while there that she and her representation thought she might be too busy, understandably. But here we are, and we're just a few weeks out from starting rehearsals for her play Artemisia, which I am giddy about.
We'll see her in person as we birth this play.
Yep.
And it's a microcosm, that play in particular, and its content, and it's a kick-ass script, is a microcosm of what this festival is about. This is a play by a woman who never got the props that she deserved when she was alive. She's been getting them more recently, and pulling with her, as you saw in the Detroit Institute of Art show last year, tons of other women who were also great painters from the same period and are now getting their due. And you're seeing the same thing here. I mean, one of the things I am proudest of with this festival is the way it's opening up to plays by a global majority and women or female identifying or non-binary playwrights. I mean, Madison's truly throwing down here. I mean, 2/3 of its entries, are in those categories. In Milwaukee, half of the entries are by global majority playwrights. So not only are we seeing new work, we're seeing new work by the voices which for way too long in theater have been the least heard and the most marginalized. getting a day in the sun. And that's just great. And yeah, Artemisia is definitely part of that. So I
Yeah.
can't wait to see it.
Yeah. This has been, it's been both a long time coming, this festival, and also feels like the idea was just yesterday. And I suppose that conflation of time has as much to do with our COVID blur as anything else. But we felt it was important to sort of celebrate the kickoff here on this podcast. You know, we talk about this as an opportunity to talk about what's going on in our own company, but also regionally, and to shine a light on American theater that's maybe a little less New York focused. And I think a festival like this, not just because it started here at our company, but because it's happening here in our neck of the woods, is so in line with what we're trying to do with this podcast. And so I'm so glad we, had a chance to talk about it. Now, we will, believe me, be coming back to other related topics during the course of the festival, because it goes till June 30th. It's, it's spread out purposefully over several months. In part because we're encouraging people to travel all over the state, and you kind of need to have some room for that. But we also knew that we would have participating companies that are on a summer schedule, like our Door County colleagues, or American Players Theater to our west, as well as companies that are on a sort of fall to spring calendar. And we just wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to fit this into their normal programming, as opposed to, just add a reading or a workshop. So there's going to be a lot over these next several months, and we will certainly be revisiting World Premiere Wisconsin as a topic on this podcast. But we kind of wanted to just kick it off.
Yeah.
Celebrate how we got here.
It's here.
It's here. So yeah, I want to encourage you again, if you're listening to this, check out our website, worldpremierwisconsin.com. I know at the very least, Forward's production is also streaming. So if you're not listening in Wisconsin and you're too far away to make a trip here, but we encourage you to make a trip here, there will be at least a couple of projects that will also be available digitally. So I really hope you'll check it out and come visit us. But I think I will say that is it for this episode of Theater Forward, a conversation about theater in Wisconsin, the Midwest, and America. I'm Jen Uphoff Gray.
I'm Julie Swenson.
And I'm Mike Fisher. Our podcast is produced, as always, by Scott Hayden, who helps make sure that you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter. That's at Theater Forward. As always, theater spelled with an ER. And, I got to say, all three of our leading producing festivals in this festival spell theater with an ER. So there.
Wasn't a conscious decision. We just, yeah. So. And if you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to just subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you might tune in. And please be sure to leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
We are so grateful to have you listening, and we will be back soon for another Theater Forward conversation.